Welcome to CaptCan Comics' first long-form video. Things tend to move pretty fast around here, and that means we don't normally sit down and do things like this. A lot of times we'll do a quick Facebook post when new books come in. A lot of times we'll do a quick live video, or a quick Facebook video, or a quick Instagram video. But it's quite rare that I'll take the time to sit down and do a nice walkthrough of a box we just bought. So this week I've purchased 3 large collections, my favorite of which is an almost entirely Golden Age collection consisting of just over 300 CGC, CBCS, and PGX graded books. Just over 250 of those 300 books are Golden Age. The majority of the rest are Silver Age. Today I'm going to walk through about the top 20 books. That might not necessarily be by value, but it is certainly by my favorite books. So this box here contains the top 20 books, in my opinion, out of this collection. All of these books will be making it up onto our eBay store this Saturday night. That's tomorrow night, actually, Friday, October 22nd, or Saturday, October 22nd, rather. And they'll be starting at $199.99 Canadian each. There's going to be just over 100 of these books up for auction starting tomorrow night, and we'll be running a 7-day auction ending the following Saturday. So, with that being said, let's run through a few of my favorite books out of this collection. First off, we've got a Shield Wizard Comics number 1. So this is a 0.5. It's from MLJ Comics, which is a precursor to Archie, published in 1940. As much as it is a 0.5, it is still a significant key. So you have the origin of the wizard, and you have the origin of the shield in this book from 1940. The shield was a character that I collected when I got into collecting comic books. I collected a lot of the Archie shield books at that point. They were inexpensive. A lot of them still are inexpensive. It's nothing I really chase anymore, but it's a great 80-plus-year-old key, even in a 0.5. It's got pretty solid eye appeal. And unfortunately brittle pages, but quite the cover with the American flag in the background there too. So there's the Shield Wizard number 1, starting at $199.99 this weekend on our eBay store. Next up, we've got the Captain Arrow Comics 11 from Continental Publishing in 1943. This is in a much better grade, in a 5.0. There's only 4 graded higher, with this being a war cover from 1943. It's scarce and decent grade, and this copy has off-white pages to boot. This cover has excellent colors. It's a plane crash cover from the early 40s, with a questionable depiction. It goes to show you some of the historical inaccuracies that may have taken a little bit of extra liberties and freedoms in the early 40s that publishers can't quite get away with in the mainstream anymore, for good reason. But that just makes this book, to me, an even cooler piece of history. Next up in my box here, we have a Cracked Comics 21. So this has an awesome Black Condor cover. This is a 3.0 with brittle pages. Published by Quality Comics in 1943. Now, as much as this book is very good with brittle pages, in fact, there's even small pieces of the book in the bottom of the case, it has excellent eye appeal. This book being over 70 years old, it's not unexpected that it's got brittle pages. The book has obviously been through some serious wear and tear over its 70-year lifespan, but the focal point, the cover, the spine, the edges, they look spectacular. This book has excellent eye appeal for a 3.0. It's got a long list of guest appearances, but biggest there is the Black Condor. So it's a 1942 publication with actually Lou Fine art in that one. Next, we have a Big 3 number 1. This is published by Fox Features in the fall of 1940. So you have 3 large characters there. You've got Samson, you have the Blue Beetle, and you have the Flame on the cover of the same book, 1940. This is well before any DC or Marvel or Timely rather crossovers, team-ups of that sort. This is 3 independent large characters in their own number 1. It's a 1.5 with light tan to off-white pages, but again, for a book from 1940, you really can't be too terribly picky. This copy, as well as the rest of the box, on our eBay tomorrow night. Next in the box, Prize Comics 68. Now, there isn't much significant value to this, but the colors on the cover, as well as the depiction, absolutely blew me away. So we're looking at a Prize Comics 68. It's a 2.5 from 1948, so a little bit later than the last couple we looked at. Prize publication. It's a crime horror title. It really goes to It speaks to what was selling at that point in 1948. Both crime and horror genres were doing well, so this has a bit of a crossover of the two. There's a Frankenstein appearance in one of the interior stories, and the cover is gruesome with a couple prisoners being shot there. Lots of blood, lots of gore on the cover. Again, not something you can necessarily get away with these days, but the colors on the cover as well as what it's depicting, to me, it blows me away. Again, not exceptional value in this book, but the cover has been, I've been spending a lot of time looking at it, that's for sure. Next into my box, we've got a Terry Toons Comics number 3, so we're into a different genre here. This is a Timely Comics publication from 1942. So that's pre-Marvel Comics days. Terry Toons Comics, obviously it's a cartoon-based comic based on Paul Terry's cartoons in a 6.0 with creamed off-white pages rather. This is the only, there's only one copy graded higher than this, and this book contains a Stan Lee script. To some people that's a big deal, to others maybe not so much, but a 1942 Stan Lee script on a book that is quite hard to find and in relatively good grade for a 70-year-old book is the perfect storm, right? So again, you've got a Stan Lee interior story, you've got a cartoon book that should not exist in a fine condition when it's 70 years old. You've got a pre-Marvel Timely from 1942. Again, it's the best of all. It's the best of both worlds. It's checking all the boxes. As far as a Golden Age Marvel book that isn't, or an Atlas book rather, or Timely, that is not a superhero book goes, I think this one's pretty freaking cool. Moving along into some EC comics. So I've got two here that are along the same vein. First off, I've got a Psychoanalysis number 1, 1955. So this is in the latter days of EC comics. When they're not allowed to, this is following Seduction of the Innocent, this is following all the controversy with the Comics Code Authority. This is when EC was getting in a lot of trouble for some of the questionable things they were publishing in relation to crime comics. They had to start changing, or horror comics rather, they had to change what they were selling. That included, there were titles, words in the title they weren't allowed to use, there was depictions of things on the covers they weren't allowed to portray. So EC Comics was in a bit of a scramble to come up with a new genre that would still be successful. So, that being said, we've got these two books. First off, we have the Psychoanalysis here, again in EC from 1955. This is a very scarce book, and it's worth noting that this is the only book of the 4-issue miniseries that was not approved by the Comics Code Authority. So again, they're in that interim period following Seduction of the Innocent trials, where EC Comics is in limbo with what they're allowed to publish, but the Comic Code Authority isn't quite fully established yet. So this book is not approved by the Comics Code Authority. Issues 2 through 4 of the miniseries are approved by the Comic Code Authority, and issues 2 through 4 will also be in this weekend's auction. So we'll have Psychoanalysis 1 through 4. Following up on that book, we have MD number 1, Medical Doctor. So again, EC looking for something different to publish, something they weren't allowed to publish beforehand, didn't publish beforehand, but they are allowed to publish now. We have another doctor or medical related comic book. So we've got MD number 1. Again, just like the Psychoanalysis, this book was not approved by the Comics Code Authority. Issues 2 through 5 all are, and just like Psychoanalysis, we also have issues 2 through 5 in this weekend's auction. So they'll be listed individually, all starting at $199.99. Next up, we have a Hi-Ho Comics. So this is a cartoon book published in 1946 by 4 Star Publishing. There's not significant value for this one, and I know it won't be the most in-demand book, but I think it's worth taking a couple minutes to talk about. You have a cartoon cover, again, a few racially questionable depictions, if you will, some things that they would publish in the 40s and the 50s that they don't quite publish anymore, but you have an LB Cole cover. A cartoon book with an LB Cole cover, to me, is very, very cool. You see a lot of spaceship covers, you see some horror covers, some romance covers, but you have this Donald Duck type looking character in the bottom right corner there, drawn by LB Cole, and the colors on this cover, the liner, you cannot help but spend a few minutes stopping to look at this cover. The colors of any LB Cole cover are one of the identifying marks, but this cover, it's remarkable. Again, it's a cartoon book, it's not going to go for a lot of money, but as far as Golden Age stuff goes, to me, I'm a big LB Cole fan, so to see an LB Cole cover like this, I'm very, very, very impressed with. Again, not a big book. That being said, there are only 4 copies graded higher than a 3.5, so not one you can be too terribly picky on. Next up is a bigger, more traditional key. This is Vault of Horror number 12, also known as Vault of Horror number 1. So, Vault of Horror was previously published by EC Comics under the title War Against Crime. It was published for issues 1 through 11, and then for issue 12 rather, it was retitled Vault of Horror. So that makes this Vault of Horror number 1. It's got a bondage and a torture cover. Even in a low grade, this is a very significant key, being the premiere issue of one of EC's flagship horror titles. It's a 1.0 frill. That being said, again, beautiful, supple, off-white pages. Not something you see in these low grades of these 70-year-old books too often. Moving on, in the same horror type genre, a little more sci-fi, we have a Black Cat Mystery 47 from Harvey Publications 1953. While the Black Cat mystery comics aren't terribly scarce, this one is worth taking a second look at, in that it is a 7.5 with creamed off-white pages, so a VF minus on a 67-year-old book is certainly nothing to scoff at. But this copy is a double cover, so it was manufactured with 2 covers added around the first wrap. The interior cover was assigned a 7.5 by CGC, and the exterior cover was assigned a 6.5. CGC takes into account the higher of the 2 covers and assigns that grade. So this is a 7.5 creamed off-white Black Cat Mysteries number 47, 1953, Harvey Publications, and it has not 1 but 2 covers. Again, this will be featured in our auction this weekend. Next, we have a Two-Fisted Annual number 1. You have an awesome Harvey Kurtzman cover. It's a VG find. The annuals of any EC series are hard to find. Much like some of the early Marvel UK annuals, or some of those Marvel trade paperbacks from the very early 70s. Again, a lot of them distributed in the UK. These books are not reprints, but a collection of essentially unsold EC books. So the label note on this one is that the book contains Frontline Combat number 2, Two-Fisted Tales number 26, Two-Fisted Tales 20, and Frontline Combat 5. So in all likelihood, those are 4 books that EC Comics didn't sell, and they had lots of extras of. So they stripped the covers off, they stripped the spines down, and they glue those spines right into this book. This series only had 2 annuals. We do have both 1 and 2. The 2 is a lower grade in this weekend's auction. But these are particularly scarce books. Again, any annual from the 50s, particularly EC Comics annuals, are hard to find. And you have an excellent Harvey Kurtzman cover in decent grade. Moving on to the Two-Fisted Annual, we have a truly hard to find book. We use a lot of different guides, we use a lot of different references when pricing books. This book is in none of them. So I have a Fun and Adventure Comics number 1. I am sure this is the first time you're seeing one of these. This is a comic book from 1944. It is a Fawcett promotional comic book given out by Mighty Pure. You have a whole bunch of character appearances there on the cover, including Captain Marvel in the bottom corner. This is the only known copy. This book does not exist in comics.org. This book does not exist in CLZ. This book is not in the Overstreet price guide. This book is on the CGC census, but only this one varied copy. So this is a 2.0 with creamed off-white pages and a detached cover. But again, for a book that only 1 copy is proved to exist, you can't be too picky. This copy will be making it into our feature Golden Age auction this weekend. Next, we have a 4 Favorites 19. Again, not a big winner, but there's a few things I want to talk about this cover. So you have a swastika on the right hand or the left hand side there, which is, as far as Golden Age books go, pretty common. This is a book from 1945. Obviously, that was on the agenda of the day. You have a few other things going on with this cover, in that it's a bondage cover. The character's tied up to this sinking Nazi ship. It's a 4 Favorites rather. And my absolute favorite part of this book, which many collectors might not like at all, is right in the front there, you have a Bonnet's Comics stamp. So the Bonnet's Comics stamp is a comic shop in Ohio. Bonnet's Comics is still open today, and they have been around for many years. In fact, this collection contains other books with Bonnets 4, and my personal collection copy of Batman number 5 also has a Bonnet stamp on it. I bought that book well over 6 months ago, so I was taking a minute to appreciate this cover, pulled it out of this collection the other day, and to see the Bonnet stamp that matches my Batman 5 that sits proudly on my wall, I was very impressed to see. So I thought I'd share that. Next, we have some traditional GGA from Golden Age. We've got a fiction house from 1943 in Planet Comics number 22. Now, this copy in specific was given out as a promotional item from a shoe store, and with that, you have a nice big and slightly offensive sticker covering up the focal point of the cover there. That being said, it is still a 1943 Planet Comics 22. This title is in extreme demand. All of the covers are winners, and this one, even with the big sticker over the top of it, is certainly no exception. In a CBCS 1.8 with creamed off-white pages, this copy will be featured in this weekend's auction. Next up is another book that is not a big dollar winner, but I thought it was an awesome book to highlight. Military Comics number 6. So you have the second appearance of Sniper in this book. It's a 1942 publication from Quality Comics, and this copy is a 6.5 Fine Plus with white pages. I personally think this book was slightly undergraded by CGC. The best I can see within the case, I haven't checked the graders notes, it's looking like a fine, very fine 7.0 to me. But a 6.5, again, nothing you can laugh at. The structural integrity of this book is impeccable. It's got a couple spine ticks, it's got a small crease on the back cover, the corners are slightly blunted, but this book's from 1942, it's exactly 70 years old. The integrity, the structural integrity, the solidity of this book is very, very, very impressive. And those bright colors and white pages. Even the back ad, it's nothing significant, but the colors, you can see just how bright they are, how deeply struck. I'm very impressed with this copy. Again, not a big book by any stretch, but certainly a remarkable copy. On to some Captain Marvels. We have a Wiz Comics 18. This is the earliest of the box so far, with a 1941 cover date. It is a 1.5 with off-white to white pages. It is a 1.5 with off-white to white pages, and it also homages an Action Comics cover. So you've got Captain Marvel ripping up the train tracks ahead of the train, trying to stop it. Again, 1941, it's a 1.5, iconic CC Beck cover, and off-white white pages. In case you haven't picked up on it, this one's heading to our auction this weekend. Next up, we have a Master Comics 22. So, this is part 3 of the trilogy depicting Captain Marvel Jr.'s origin story. This is also Captain Marvel Jr.'s first cover appearance. Unfortunately, this book has been through some tough times from the looks of it. It is a 0.5 with still creamed off-white pages, although the front cover has quite the blue tint. Again, Origin Part 3, first Captain Marvel Jr. cover, that's a very big book. It's a Fawcett publication from 1942, another 70-year-old book. We're expecting this one to perform quite well this weekend at auction, even though it's got that blue tint to it. It certainly is not a book you can be too picky on. I believe the only other copy for sale right now publicly is a 1.5. Next up is an Archie's Pal Jughead number 1. So this book, obviously published by Archie, right? Wrong. This copy was published by Bell Features. So Bell Features reprinted in Toronto the Canadian edition of a lot of popular American comic books with fewer ads, sometimes on poor production quality, but they'd reprint these American comics in Canada for distribution when there were trade limitations on paper products during wartime. So this Archie Jughead number 1 is a Canadian edition. That makes it one of only 3 graded copies. Believe it or not, there is one copy lower than this 1.8. There is a 0.5 on the census, and there's also an absolutely insane CGC 9.0 copy on the census. While this is not that, it is still a very impressive 1.8 from 1950. Again, Bell Features publications are very, very, very hard to find. This is an Archie number 1, which are seeing more demand over the years, and this one is certainly no exception. Again, as a Canadian, it's not a book that you can be picky and choosy on. This is one of only 3 graded copies. Next up, and certainly last but not least, I have an Action Comics number 59. You have a swastika cover, you have a war cover, you have Superman ripping open the top of a tank. It's 1943. DC is obviously pushing out war propaganda. Superman is promoting war bonds right in the front cover of this book. Again, he's ripping open a Nazi tank. Absolutely remarkable. 1943. Very, very scarce book, even in a BG+. The most recent sale was in a 5.0, and it was for a very, very, very impressive figure. we're expecting this CGC 4.5 to do remarkably well this weekend at our Golden Age auction. I'm a big fan of it. It snuck in here at the end of the list just as an action. I'm a big fan of those pre-100 actions, those pre-100 detectives. So I needed to make sure this snuck in here. There is a detective from this collection. It went up as a buy it now instead on our website this evening, but this action is headed to our Golden Age feature auction starting this weekend. So thank you for watching to the end of this video. I just ran through my personal top 20 books out of the 300 book collection I bought earlier this week, which contained over 250 Golden Age slabs. If you missed it, the first 100 of those Golden Age slabs will be going up for auction on our eBay store starting Saturday, October 22nd. They will be running for 7 days, and they'll be ending Saturday the 29th of October 2022. All of them will be starting at just $199.99 Canadian, and we're hoping they go for a lot more than that. Alright, if you want to get in on the fun and snag any of these Golden Age comic books this weekend at our eBay auction, check out the link in the description. We've got the link in our bio on our Instagram and our Facebook. We'll be promoting it all over our social media for the next week. Again, we've got over 100 Golden Age slabs starting at just $200 each on eBay this weekend. So we'll be running for 7 days. Get your bids in, bid often, bid high. There's a lot of books starting very, very low, and I'm just as excited as you guys are to see where they end up. So check out our eBay auction, and we'll see you guys next week with more great new books.